Welcome back to the Zero Space Program, where after yesterday's drunken and quite frankly astonishing success, things may have got a little bit out of hand after I finished recording. What we have is a mock-up of a prototype third stage, and I don't quite know what was going through my mind, but it does seem that we've gone back to the original idea, which was to have an absolutely massive third stage that could sort of lift everything upwards and onwards. I haven't tried it, we're about to try it, and it doesn't look like it's going to turn very well, so if we can get it on course, I think we're going to make our attempt on the pole. This is the ridiculousness that we have constructed. It's not very pretty. I think that would be an understatement. Copious amounts of space tape. Some unevenness that may have come from a few misclicks. But all in all, now you'll notice it's a Mark II. There is a Mark I version as well that I did, which is basically the same, except these engines were exchanged for something else. And when I looked at it in the cold sober light of day, I realised that these solid booster stages obviously are going to provide significantly more thrust than these things, which means it's going to get us in the air better. So even having extra engines that burn longer at this stage, it isn't going to help us. They are detachable to reduce weight, which is kind of the goal as well, but what's immediately going to happen, I would imagine, is obviously you're going to have air coming under here, pushing upwards, providing lift. As soon as these burst off, I'm fairly sure this is going to whip round and this is going to whip round and possibly take the rear section off. At the very least, it's going to cut off our control surfaces, so not my best work. Nevertheless, onwards. Okay, off to a rolling start. I've just set about correcting some of the stages. God only knows what's going to happen here. I have separated the solid boosters into a separate stage because we're going to need this towards the end of the runway, and for the altitude gain stage, I would imagine. Sod it. It feels like it's pulling to the right, just ever so slightly. That could be because of my misclick. Yeah, it is pulling. Straighten that off. Turn the SAS on. Man, Bill is so cool. He's just so chilled about the whole thing. It's just a regular day at the office for him. Buffeting on the ground is never the best sign. Okay, come up to the runway markers. I felt that. Oh dear. Okay, we'll gain some altitude and then we can begin manoeuvring. We have a 90-degree turn to make, which is going to take forever. Because if I try and bank this thing over, or I turn too sharply, it's just going to tear to pieces. Let's drop the left wing just a little, and see if that helps us get round. And I don't want to pitch up or pitch down too sharply. Okay, as the solid booster's gone, so we're going to wash off speed quite dramatically now. My main concern is that this piddly little engine and these ones under here, which I'll show you when we're in some stable flight, are going to struggle to provide enough thrust to keep us in the air and climbing. It's very important that we don't just get extra distance out of this stage, but also get to an altitude where we're going to get maximum fuel efficiency for the other engines. Come on. We're almost halfway there. Once we're on course heading north, I'll cut the video and we can rendezvous further down the road. It's trying to pull up and it keeps rolling to the right. I don't know if a piece of bodywork has fallen off and it's creating lift on one side more than the other. There is an aerodynamic overlay I could turn on, but for the moment I'm more concerned about just getting us pointing in the right direction so we can start to see what the engines can actually do. Because all the time we're turning, all the time I'm messing with the elevation, washing speed off, and that is not good. We're already below 100 meters per second, which is not great. I mean, it's good, but we are climbing. So we're moving in the right direction, and obviously when the air's a bit thinner further up, it might be that this starts to handle just a teensy bit better. Come on, we're almost heading north. Do you know, I'm so distracted by performing this manoeuvre that it hasn't occurred to me that this is technically a success. Which I promised myself and you would not happen again after yesterday. Uh-oh, we've pitched up too high. Come on. Down you come. No. Ah, crap. Crap. Let's see if I can't detach. That did not help. Come on, roll over. We need to detach the... Oh. Thrust up. Why have those engines flamed out? Oh, they're not getting any air. Come on, pitch over. That'll do. The air's flowing the wrong way. Oh, Bill, you're a lucky boy. Well, aside from scattering the ocean with debris, I take that as a very, very positive start. I honestly believe it is possible to get that on target. I guess I should perhaps fire the solid boosters a smidge later, and I'm probably going to have to be a bit bolder with my turning manoeuvre because we're just washing off too much speed in the time it takes. I do love this final stage. I know it had a difficult berth, but look at it go. Super fast. Oh, actually, I just remembered that's not necessarily a good thing. It slows quite nicely as well. If I can get Bill back alive, that in itself I'm going to qualify as an achievement. Not quite enough to satisfy me with the video. Oh, Bill, what have I done to you? Okay, that's enough speed now. I'm so tense, I've actually forgotten to commentate this whole thing. Oh, this could be glorious. This could be glorious. Bill still doesn't give a fuck. Rear wheels first, rear wheels first. Oh, wow. Best recovery evers. What's most incredible about that is this portion of the thing actually stayed intact. It survived all those explosions and the flying debris with none of the control surfaces removed. I do think the larger, the medium stage probably could have survived that as well if I hadn't have locked the SAS the way I did. Oh, you're a lucky boy. Be brave. Be brave. Be brave. Oh my god. Come on, you fucking thing. Holy shit balls. Oh, look at that, heading north. Heading north. I'm so nervous now. I mean, genuinely so nervous that I'm going to, first of all, reset the SAS. And I'm going to not detach these empty solid fuel boosters because I don't know how critical to the lift we're generating those rear flaps are. But we are gaining altitude at a modest rate, and we are actually gaining speed at a modest rate, so prognosis is good. I just need to find a way to level it off so we're not turning off course. And I need to pitch down just ever so slightly. Oh, that's a pulse pounder. I suppose I'll see you at the next sphincter twinching moment. Update time. Bit of a problem. We're looking great on the fuel front, but you'll notice that we are washing off speed. So that calls for a slight adjustment. Oh, you see that? Did you see that? It's starting to pull to the side when I pitch down. This is bad. This could be very, very bad. Let's just even that off. Oh. Okay, speed is climbing, but we are descending now, which you can actually see if you watch carefully. The trail from the jets actually as well kind of shows you your rough relative motion. I'm not sure how I'm going to fix this. I suggest what I'm going to do, I'll check in with you shortly, but we will get as much range out of this thing as possible. It's quite slow. You can still see the Space Center in the background there. But all this is going to become free distance on our journey. Oh no, we're starting to climb again now. Man, this thing is impossible to read. Okay, so new status update. Climbing, gaining speed, holding the course. Things look good. Let me show you on the map what's been happening. So this is the map that usually you use to track your space missions. And this here, the AP is our apoapsis. That's the highest point above the surface. Assuming we're not in orbit. If you are in orbit, then you also get a periapsis. And this trajectory now basically assumes that if we were to cut the engines, gravity would pull us down this way, because this tool isn't really for monitoring atmospheric flight. But we've come from here, and we're moving ever so slowly up towards the pole here. We're going to have to make a course adjustment, probably somewhere around here, to make sure that we hit the pole and we don't end up over the ocean. And then just for... there's the South Pole down there. The engines are making some weird noise, so we'll go back and check that's all okay. Yep, looking good so far. Looking good. Still climbing. We're starting to lose speed again, but I'll keep my eye on it, and I'll update you if anything else happens. So, yay us. Progress so far has been pretty exceptional. In fact, it's looking at this point like we could actually do, completely to my surprise, the entire run with the big stage. And I've completely over-engineered the whole thing. Let me show you where we're at. We've used... I mean, the problem's going to be when these engines run out of fuel. I didn't hook them up to the main tanks because I didn't see a need to. So once these are gone, we're going to be running on these two engines and this at the back. And that might not be enough. Who even knows? But let's take a look at our progress. We are, I would say, near as makes no difference, a third, maybe a bit more, of the way to the pole. I must admit, I'm completely unaccustomed to this level of success, and I promise you, like, it's been so long since I touched this game, I had no idea that this insane thing I've built would actually work. I don't know, the burden of genius, it's heavy. Okay, progress continues to be excellent. You see on the horizon there, that's the second mountain range, the second and last mountain range we have to cross before we hit some water, and then we hit the pole. We're about halfway through the journey. Flight time so far of 28 minutes. We keep washing off speed, and given that we have so much fuel in hand, and that I've engineered this thing specifically for this job, I'm considering, before we go any further and I become even more frustrated if it goes wrong, I'm considering ditching the big stage and then making faster progress with stage 2 and stage 1. And now I'm thinking, while talking to you, about how best to do that. The first thing is that this can't be pitched up, and ideally it can't be running its engines, because otherwise that will disconnect and the whole thing will push up into the top structure and break us to pieces. And ideally we want these engines running, but if we start them too early, it's going to cause us to pitch down, because it's going to change the centre of thrust. This is going to be a very, very complicated maneuver. First of all, I need to identify which is the break off. It's this one. Okay, so my other stages now become irrelevant, and what we want is to start these engines up. Okay, pray for Bill, people. Throttling down, leveling off. fire the next engines. And thrust up. Oh no, I can't thrust up, that's a bad idea. Thrust down. I'm worried now that this tail at the end could come up and slice us. There's never going to be a better time to do it. Whew, whew. Okay. Thrust. Oh, it's going to... No, don't flame out again. Please don't flame out again. Okay. I can save this, probably. Let's just spin it this way. Oh no, this is bad news. Thrust off. Next stage. Okay, we need to... We're now going to have to try and make this journey on much less fuel. Where are we heading? I don't think we're heading north anymore, are we? I've got totally turned around. So there's a definite design flaw in that intermediate stage that we can't seem to figure out while we are taking off. So that's a real problem. Clearly something about it, after it stalls out, there's just too much weight resting on the back, which is strange because it is actually perfectly balanced aerodynamically, or according to the readout it should be. And it definitely has the power to get out of that, but we can't seem to stop it from pitching up so wildly that the engines begin running backwards in the air and then they flame out because they're not getting any air through the intakes. That's going to be a real pain to solve. Assuming that we have to. For now though, let's ignore stage 2 and let's hope this little thing, with what little fuel it has, can press on. I'm going to have to try and gain some height, I think, to height and speed, to try and get these engines to get the most out of the available fuel. And we can now match the speed we were getting with the larger design with less than 50% throttle, which is great. So I'm going to up it a bit, and we'll try and make some progress. I'll check in with you soon. Well, the sun is going down. We're past the halfway mark, I would guess. It's very hard to tell. Nice. So I will check in with you again once we've cleared the mountain range, and then we're on the final stretch. I pretend I'll be angry and disappointed if we do this on the first attempt, because failure is kind of the hallmark here, but I think there's some much more complicated missions coming up that will provide a much greater failure quotient, which should make everyone feel better about things. For now, I've come too far that I'm kind of rooting to make it. I promise it won't happen again. Seem to have found a sweet spot where we are gaining altitude and maintaining a speed around 130. Progress is good. I think we will run out of fuel before we hit the pole, but that was kind of to be expected, and as long as we can bring it down in one piece, we could have a successful mission on our hands. I don't know if you can see it, but that's an ice cap creeping into view. We might not make it to the exact point of the pole, given the fuel situation, although we could have done if I hadn't have been stubborn and refused to accept that I'd built something that works. Hello Moon, you freaky bastard. So, basically, as long as this fuel's enough to get us across this body of water and over the white stuff, I'm calling it a win. See you soon. We are on fumes, but tantalisingly close. That's insane. We've learnt some really important stuff as well doing this. I don't consider it a waste, even if we fall into the ocean a few feet away from the cap, because first of all, you know, this element, this final stage, is solid, rock solid. Without the SAS on, it's a little bit unpredictable, a little bit difficult to handle, but fortunately it does have SAS built onto the avionics package on the nose, which means it is quite stable. It's also got a phenomenal range and speed, so, you know, we're equipped for both. Sometimes, you know, a boost of speed is what you need, other times not so much. In fact, speaking of speed, I'm going to get as much speed as I can out of this last bit of fuel. Yeah, we're almost out. Because we really want to hit land if we can. See that speed boost there? You see the acceleration we got out of that then? And we know it can hit 360 or faster. It's washing speed off again, but that boost just pushed us so far along. Yeah, I'm going to have to do the same again, even if it drains the tank. So it's got incredible range, and I'll show you once we've got this thing on the ground one way or another exactly the range we got out of this stage. It's also very, very light, which contributes to that range and the speed, and it's an excellent basis for exchanging crew between the ground and a space station. This is something we could quite happily put on top of a multi-stage rocket, blast up into orbit, dock, and then we'll have it like a sort of a stage coming off the central column here on the back that we could use to thrust against the direction of our orbit and bring ourselves back down for a nice graceful landing. So realistically, I was going to have the next mission be to just get a small satellite up in orbit, just so it feels like we're progressing organically, but it actually, given how successful this thing has been, I think mission 2 will actually be to get this thing into orbit and down again safely. That won't be a multi-part mission, I don't think, because rockets are fairly straightforward when you're dealing with you know, basic orbital stuff. It's only really when you're dealing with long-range missions that that you run into problems. I suppose we're almost down, so I'll just keep yammering. We're probably quite some distance away from the pole. I'll just even off a little bit so we can check the map. So the pole's obviously we've come off course at some point. If we carried on, we would have still not quite hit the pole, but we were we've gone the right way, I suppose. We flew from all the way down here where Bob currently resides to wherever we land up here, and if I zoom in, we ditched the fuel supply around between these two mountain ranges, so somewhere around, oh, gone through the planet, somewhere around here, I suppose. You can't see my mouse, I believe, but somewhere around where I'm gesturing, and the rest of the journey was made on those two tiny tanks and the main tank of this module. It's stalling out, so I'm just going to dive it at this point. I'm going to dive it straight down, get as much speed as I can, and then we can wash it off as we need it. This is something obviously that works differently on each planetary body. So, you know, what we're working with here is very similar to what you would expect to see in the real world outside, because this is the game equivalent of Earth, I suppose. You'll notice that some planets have much heavier gravity, which means getting off the surface is an absolute nightmare, and you won't wash off as much speed coming down. But the principle stays the same. The higher you are, the more potential energy you have once you're out of fuel. And by diving, you're converting that potential energy into airspeed momentarily, which obviously in this case is compensating for the fact that we have no engines. I want to keep our speed above 100 if possible. Of course we have no way of telling how high we are. There is no shadow being cast at the moment. As if I didn't know better. If I didn't know better, I'd say that we were on the ground already. Oh. That was complete luck. I had no way of knowing that we were about to touch down. That was total instinct, but I timed it perfectly. Bill, you lucky adventurous motherfucker. Let me slam those brakes on. Well, not exactly mission complete, but pretty close. That zooming out there should give you some idea of exactly how much distance this thing has managed to cover, considering we ran out of fuel over the sea. That it's come all this way purely through gliding. And then obviously we can't zoom out far enough. Even here we can't see where we ditched the main stage. So this thing is phenomenal. I think this is going to be the workhorse that will, certainly for crew operations, but not scientific ones necessarily, but for handling crew transfers and so on, I think we've found a winner. I'm confident, although the flight services may disagree, I'm confident that this is something that will handle re-entry okay, provided the SAS functions. We need to put some heat shielding on it, but we'll do that next time out. Thank you very much for joining me. Apologies again for the success. See you soon.